If you want to know the one sentence that will make a narcissist fear you forever, you first have to understand the game they're playing. Because make no mistake, with a narcissist, it's always a game. They thrive on control, they thrive on reaction, and most of all, they thrive on making you doubt yourself. That's how they win. And until you see that clearly, you'll keep falling into their traps over and over again. Here's the truth: narcissists survive on fuel. Their fuel isn't food or money, it's attention. It's knowing they can make you spin in circles, get emotional, defend yourself, and bend to their reality. The more you react, the more powerful they feel. So when you're arguing with them, when you're explaining yourself for the 10th time, when you're pleading for them to just understand, you're actually giving them exactly what they want. They don't want clarity, they want chaos, they don't want peace, they want control. Think about it. How many times have you tried to reason with someone who has no interest in reason? You bring facts, you bring logic, you bring your heart, and every single time they twist it back on you. Suddenly you're apologizing when you were the one who was hurt. Suddenly you're questioning your memory when you know what you saw. Suddenly you're wondering if maybe you are overreacting. That's not by accident. That's the game. It's called gaslighting, and it's one of their favorite tools. If they can make you doubt yourself, they don't even need to prove themselves right. Because in your mind, they've already won. And here's where most people get stuck. They think if they can just say it the right way, if they can just find the perfect words, if they can just appeal to reason, the narcissist will finally get it. But you need to hear this clearly: narcissists don't care about getting it. They don't care about truth, fairness, or growth. They care about control. That's it. Every conversation, every interaction, every move is about maintaining that grip on you. And once you see it for what it is, it changes everything. Picture it like this. You're in a boxing ring, gloves on, ready to fight fair. You've trained, you've prepared, you're ready to defend yourself. But the narcissist, they're not fighting fair. They're not even playing the same sport. While you're throwing punches by the rules, they're biting, tripping, throwing sand in your eyes. And then, to top it off, they're telling the crowd you're the dirty fighter. If you keep trying to play fair with someone who doesn't play fair, you'll always lose. The only way to win is to step out of the ring. And let me make something clear: understanding their game isn't about becoming bitter or suspicious of everyone. It's about recognizing patterns. Because narcissists run on patterns, they use manipulation, guilt, gaslighting, and control. They cycle between giving you just enough attention to keep you hooked and then pulling it away to keep you chasing. It's like a slot machine. You never know when the reward is coming, so you keep pulling the lever. That's why dealing with them feels so exhausting but so hard to break away from. It's addictive. And when you finally start to see their tactics for what they are, you take back power. You stop asking, why are they doing this to me? And you start saying, of course they're doing this. This is what they do. And that shift right there is huge. Because once you know the game, you stop wasting energy playing by their rules. You stop running in circles trying to prove yourself. You stop explaining the obvious to someone who has no intention of listening. Instead, you start conserving your strength. You start getting strategic, and that's when you become dangerous to a narcissist. Because nothing terrifies them more than losing control. Their biggest fear isn't you leaving, it's you leaving and not caring. It's you becoming immune to their tactics. It's you seeing through the smoke and mirrors and realizing that all their power only existed because you kept handing it to them. And when you take that power back, you stop being their source of fuel. Without fuel, they flounder. Without reaction, they panic. Without your energy, they shrink. So before I give you the one sentence that makes them fear you, you need to understand why it works. It works because it cuts straight into the heart of their game. It works because it denies them the one thing they crave most: control over your emotions. It works because once you understand that their entire playbook is designed to get a rise out of you, you realize the smartest move isn't to fight harder. It's to stop playing. That's the secret to dealing with narcissists. Not bigger arguments, not better explanations, not endless patience. The secret is clarity. The clarity that you don't owe them your energy. The clarity that their chaos isn't your chaos. The clarity that the strongest person in the room isn't the one who shouts louder. It's the one who doesn't get pulled into the game at all. So as we move forward, remember this: when you understand the narcissist's game, you stop being a pawn on their board. And that shift is exactly what makes the sentence I'm about to give you so powerful. Because once you know the rules they're playing by, you'll finally know how to break free from them. One of the most powerful things you can do when dealing with a narcissist is also one of the simplest, but it's not easy. Refuse to engage. I don't mean ignoring them completely or pretending they don't exist. I mean making the deliberate choice not to hand over your emotional energy when they're baiting you. Because here's the truth: narcissists thrive on reaction. The moment you get defensive, angry, or emotional, they've got you exactly where they want you. And once they know how to push your buttons, they'll keep pressing them. Think about a time you got pulled into a circular argument with someone like this. They said something outrageous, you tried to correct it, they twisted your words, you raised your voice, they smirked, and suddenly you were exhausted while they looked calm, maybe even smug. That wasn't an accident. That was them feeding off your reaction. They set the trap, and the moment you stepped in, they gained fuel. But refusing to engage cuts that supply off at the source. It's like trying to light a fire without oxygen. It just won't burn. Narcissists throw sparks constantly. They poke at you, they make sly comments, they twist stories, all to get you to flare up. But if you refuse to feed that spark, if you give it no air, no heat, it fizzles out. And here's what's interesting. They don't know what to do when you don't react. They're used to having power over you through your emotions. When you take that away, it unsettles them. Now, refusing to engage doesn't mean you become a statue. It doesn't mean you sit there silent, looking like you've shut down completely. What it means is responding with calm control, short, clear statements. No long explanations, no defending yourself, no trying to win the argument. Phrases like, "That's your opinion," or "I don't see it that way," or sometimes even just silence. And I promise you, silence can be louder than shouting. Silence says, "You don't control me anymore." The reason this works is because narcissists are addicted to drama. They want the fight. They want the explosion. They want you to break so they can feel strong. When you stay calm, when you don't let them pull you into the spiral, you rob them of their high. It's like taking away their favorite toy. They'll push harder at first. Don't be surprised by that. In fact, expect it. The first few times you refuse to engage, they may escalate. They might raise their voice, try guilt, try anger, try sweet, talking you back in. But that's only proof that your strategy is working. If you stay firm, eventually they realize the game isn't fun anymore. I like to picture it like this. Imagine a fisherman casting a line with bait on the hook. The narcissist is the fisherman, and every insult, every manipulation, every guilt trip is bait. They don't care if it's truth or lies. They just want you to bite. If you take the bait, they reel you in, and suddenly you're stuck in their net, thrashing around. But if you don't bite, if you look at that bait and let it drift by, they can't catch you. And sooner or later, they'll realize they're wasting their time. Another way to see it is like a dance. A toxic conversation is a dance they've led 100 times. They take one step, you take another, they know exactly where it's going. But what happens when you stop dancing? When they step forward and you don't move, the rhythm breaks. The music stops. Suddenly they're standing there confused because you refuse to follow the pattern. That's what refusing to engage does. It breaks the pattern. And here's the real benefit. Every time you refuse to engage, you're not just protecting your peace in that moment. You're training yourself, you're teaching your mind and emotions that you don't have to play every game someone invites you to. You don't have to fight every battle. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. That's strength, that's maturity. And over time, it becomes second nature. Instead of wasting hours arguing, you learn to walk away with your peace intact. I know some of you might be thinking, but if I don't defend myself, won't they just think they're right? And here's the thing, you don't need them to think you're right. You don't need their approval, their agreement, or their validation. That's the trap. They want you to keep chasing their acknowledgement so they can keep dangling it just out of reach. The moment you stop needing it, you set yourself free. Refusing to engage is not weakness. It's not surrender. It's strength. It's you saying, I value my peace more than I value winning this argument. And here's the irony. By refusing to engage, you actually win. You win because you walk away with your energy, your dignity, and your clarity intact, while they're left fuming that they couldn't get to you. So the next time a narcissist tries to bait you, remember this, you don't have to bite. You don't have to dance, you don't have to give them what they crave. You can choose calm, you can choose silence, you can choose to rise above. And every time you do, you weaken their grip just a little bit more. Until one day they realize the game doesn't work on you anymore. And that's the day you take back your power. There's one sentence that flips the script with a narcissist, and it's not long, complicated, or aggressive. It's simple, and it cuts right to the core of what they fear most. The sentence is, that's your choice. Now, at first, that may not sound earth-shattering, but let me tell you why this line makes a narcissist squirm. Narcissists thrive on control. They want to control how you feel, how you react, and most of all, how you see yourself. They'll gaslight you, guilt trip you, or twist reality until you're questioning your own judgment. But when you calmly say, that's your choice, you're putting the responsibility back where it belongs, on them. Let's break this down. Imagine they're blaming you for something that went wrong. This is all your fault, they say. The usual trap would be to defend yourself, explain your side, argue the details, maybe even apologize just to calm them down. But when you respond with, that's your choice, you're refusing to carry the weight of their projection. You're not saying they're right. You're not saying they're wrong. You're simply refusing to participate in their manipulation. You're saying, if that's what you choose to believe, that's on you, not me. And here's why it works. It exposes the truth. Narcissists hate accountability. They'll do anything to dodge it. They'll twist the narrative so that you're the villain and they're the victim. But that's your choice. Makes it clear that whatever they say, however they act, that's their responsibility, not yours. It's like putting up a mirror and saying, this is who you are. Own it. And trust me, nothing unsettles them more than being forced to face their own choices. Another powerful side of this sentence is the calm finality it carries. Narcissists thrive on keeping you hooked into endless debates. They love the back and forth because the longer you argue, the more control they feel. But that's your choice is a conversation ender. It doesn't leave room for debate. It doesn't invite more drama. It lands like a period at the end of a sentence. And that finality can feel terrifying to someone who lives on manipulation. Think about how freeing this is for you. For years, maybe you've been caught in cycles of defending yourself, over-explaining, begging them to see your side. That takes energy. That drains your confidence. But when you start responding with, that's your choice, you're no longer begging for their validation. You're no longer trying to fix them. You're no longer fighting battles that were never yours to fight. You're simply stating the truth. You make your choices, they make theirs. I want to give you a picture of what this looks like. Let's say they accuse you, you're selfish for not doing what I wanted. Instead of launching into a defense, you calmly reply, that's your choice. What you've just done is refuse the bait. You've refused to argue over whether you're selfish. You've refused to carry their label. You've handed the ownership of that judgment back to them. If they want to call you selfish, that's on them. But you don't accept it as your identity, or maybe they threaten you in a subtle way. If you walk away, don't expect me to be here when you come back. Instead of caving to fear or pleading with them, you say, that's your choice. Suddenly, the power shifts. They wanted you to feel trapped, like you had no control, but you've reminded them that their behavior is a choice, not your burden. They can leave if they want, that's on them. But you won't be manipulated into compliance. Here's what makes this sentence so brilliant. It's short, calm, and non-negotiable. You're not escalating the fight. You're not name-calling. You're not even raising your voice. You're simply planting a boundary in the ground and standing on it. And because it's so calm, it doesn't give them ammunition to twist against you. You haven't yelled. You haven't insulted. All you've done is state the truth. And narcissists hate the truth when it exposes their lack of control. Over time, this line becomes a shield. You'll start to see how many times they try to dump their baggage on you. You made me angry. You ruined everything. You're impossible. And instead of getting hooked, you'll find peace in simply saying, that's your choice. And with each use, you'll feel lighter. You'll realize you don't have to carry the weight of their emotions anymore. You don't have to take ownership of what was never yours to own. Of course, I won't lie to you. They won't like it. The first time you use this sentence, don't expect applause. Expect pushback. Expect them to get louder, to try different tactics, to make you feel guilty for holding your ground. That's their desperation speaking because they feel their grip loosening. But if you stay consistent, if you don't waver, you'll notice a shift. They'll realize the old ways don't work on you anymore, and that shift is where your freedom begins. The brilliance of that's your choice is that it takes away their favorite weapon, control, and replaces it with something they can't touch, your peace. They don't get to control how you see yourself anymore. They don't get to control your emotional state. They don't get to rewrite your story. You're reminding them and yourself that everyone is responsible for their own choices. And once you internalize that, once you start living it, you'll never see them the same way again. So remember this, the next time a narcissist throws their accusations, their guilt, or their threats at you, don't take the bait, don't defend, don't argue, don't get pulled into the spiral. Just calmly, firmly, and with full confidence say the words that terrify them more than anything else. That's your choice. The reason this one sentence works so powerfully against a narcissist is because it cuts right into the engine that drives their behavior. Narcissists run on fuel. Their fuel is your reaction, your anger, your defense, your panic, your guilt. Every time you explain yourself, every time you raise your voice, every time you scramble to prove them wrong, you are feeding them exactly what they want. You're showing them that they have power over you. But when you calmly look them in the eye and say, that's your choice, you deny them that fuel, you hand them silence instead of chaos, you hand them calm instead of conflict. And to a narcissist, that silence feels like starvation. Psychologically, narcissists are obsessed with control. Control is their lifeline. They want to control how you see yourself, how others see you, and how every interaction plays out. Their greatest fear is losing that grip. And that's your choice is kryptonite, because it hands them their own responsibility while taking back your freedom. They can't argue with it. Because it's not a debate, it's a statement. It doesn't need defense, it doesn't need proof, it doesn't need volume. It just sits there, solid and unmovable. And in that moment, the narcissist realizes they don't own you anymore. Here's the deeper truth: narcissists manipulate because they fear being exposed. Beneath all the arrogance and ego, there's insecurity. There's a desperate need to be right, to be admired, to never be seen as weak or wrong. They twist reality because the truth terrifies them. But this one sentence doesn't attack them directly, it doesn't insult them, it doesn't even accuse them. It simply holds up a mirror and says, your behavior, your decisions, your words, those are yours to own. And when forced to look at that reflection, the narcissist feels naked. The beauty of this sentence is that it breaks the cycle of defense. Most people dealing with narcissists get stuck in loops. The narcissist accuses, you defend. They guilt trip, you explain. They twist the story, you try to untangle it. And round it goes until you're exhausted and they've stolen another piece of your peace. But that's your choice. Ends the loop. It's not defensive, it's not offensive, it's not emotional, it's final. It's the verbal equivalent of putting down the rope in a tug of war. They keep pulling, but you're no longer holding on. And that, more than anything, terrifies them. Think about how liberating that is. When you say, that's your choice, you're refusing to carry their baggage. You're refusing to absorb their accusations, their blame, their endless need to be in control. Instead, you're handing the weight right back to them where it belongs. And that shift changes everything. You're no longer their pawn. You're no longer trapped in their game. You've reclaimed your position as the one who decides how you respond, and that's a power they can't touch. Another reason this works so effectively is because it's unemotional. Narcissists feed on emotion. They love to see you rattled, crying, furious, begging. Any strong emotion tells them they've won. But when you respond calmly, without flinching, you're showing them that they no longer have access to your emotional core. And when a narcissist realizes they can't control how you feel, they start to lose interest. Because without your energy to feed on, they're left with themselves, and that's the one place they never want to be. Let me give you an example of this in real time. A narcissist might say, you'll never find anyone better than me. In the past, you might have defended yourself, argued, or maybe even doubted yourself. But now you say, that's your choice. In that instant, you've rejected their attempt to trap you in fear. You've handed back the responsibility. If they believe that, that's on them. But you're no longer accepting it as truth. And notice what happens. You've just dismantled their weapon with one calm line. Or imagine them saying, you're overreacting, you're crazy. The old cycle would be to argue, to plead your sanity, to try to make them see how wrong they are. But with this sentence, you respond, that's your choice. Suddenly, the insult falls flat. They expected you to fight, but instead you've given them nothing to work with. The air goes out of their attack, and they're left scrambling to find another angle. The psychology here is simple but powerful. Narcissists hate accountability, and this sentence forces them to own it. They hate losing control, and this sentence takes it away. They hate silence because silence leaves them with their own thoughts, and this sentence ends the noise. That's why it works. Not because it destroys them, but because it protects you. Not because it wins the argument, but because it ends it. Not because it changes who they are, but because it changes how you deal with them. And here's the truth. When you start using this line consistently, you'll notice a shift in yourself. You'll feel less anxious going into conversations. You'll feel more confident in your responses. You'll stop wasting energy trying to explain yourself to someone who has no intention of understanding you. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. You'll realize you don't need 1,000 words to defend yourself. You only need one calm, steady reminder, that's your choice. At the end of the day, the reason this sentence works isn't about magic words. It's about what those words represent. They represent strength. They represent boundaries. They represent the moment you stop giving away your peace and start standing in your power. And that, more than anything else, is what makes a narcissist fear you. The power of this sentence isn't just in the words themselves, but in how you deliver them. Because if you throw it out with shaky confidence, if you rush it nervously, or if you lace it with sarcasm, the narcissist will see through it instantly. They're experts at spotting weakness, tone, and hesitation. So the way you say it has to carry the very thing it represents: calm, unshakable strength. First, your tone matters. That's your choice isn't meant to sound like a dagger. It's not meant to sound sharp or mocking. It's not said with a smirk or a laugh. It's calm, it's even, it's matter of fact. You say it as if you're pointing out the weather, neutral, steady, and undeniable. Because the moment you lace it with anger, the narcissist wins. The moment you let your frustration seep through, they know they've still got a hold on you. But when you deliver it evenly, with no cracks in your tone, they're left with nothing to push back against. Second, timing is everything. You don't throw this sentence into every conversation or use it for every little disagreement. That waters it down and makes it predictable. Instead, you use it when the narcissist tries to control, manipulate, or trap you in their cycle. You use it when they accuse you unfairly, when they threaten, when they try to pin their behavior on you. In those moments, instead of engaging, you calmly insert it like a wall. That's your choice. And then you stop. You don't add more words. You don't follow it with an explanation. The power is in the pause that follows. Silence is your ally here. Narcissists are masters at pulling words out of you, but silence unnerves them. After you say, "That's your choice," let the quiet hang in the air. Don't rush to fill it. Don't scramble to clarify. Just let it sit. That silence is where the shift happens, because for the first time, they're not in control of the conversation. You are. Your body language matters too. Stand or sit upright. Shoulders relaxed, not hunched in defense, not stiff with anger. Keep your face neutral. No rolling eyes, no sarcastic grin, no visible frustration. Just steady composure. Because your body communicates louder than your words, and if your body says you're calm, grounded, and unshaken, the narcissist will feel it. They'll sense that you're no longer the easy target you once were. Now, let's be real. Delivering this effectively takes practice. The first time you try it, you may feel nervous. Your voice might shake. You might want to add more words to soften it, to explain it. That's natural. You've been conditioned to defend yourself, to over-explain, to keep the peace by giving more. But the more you practice, the easier it becomes to just stop at the sentence, to let it breathe, to trust that those 3 words are enough. Let's play out a scenario. They say, "If you loved me, you'd do what I asked." The old you might have bent over backwards to prove your love, or argued endlessly about how much you've already done. But the new you simply looks at them calm, steady, and says, "That's your choice." And then you let silence do the rest. You're not debating whether you love them. You're not trying to prove anything. You're just refusing the manipulation. Another scenario, they say, "You're crazy, you're imagining things." Normally, you might scramble to present evidence to convince them that your perspective is valid. But instead, you calmly respond, "That's your choice." And you don't budge. Suddenly, their attempt to gaslight you hits a wall. You haven't given them your energy, and you haven't let them rewrite your reality. You've drawn the line without raising your voice. It's also important to recognize that sometimes delivering it effectively means walking away afterward. You don't always have to stay and endure the backlash. Narcissists often escalate when they lose control, and you don't have to stand there as they flail for another angle. You've said the sentence, you've reclaimed your power, and now you can exit. Because walking away doesn't mean you've lost, it means you're protecting your peace. And here's the thing, this line isn't just for them, it's for you. Every time you deliver it calmly, you're reinforcing to yourself that their choices are theirs, not yours. You're training your own mind to separate their chaos from your responsibility. That shift inside you is where the real power lies. Because once you truly believe that no narcissist can shake you, over time, you'll notice that the way you deliver it evolves. At first, it might feel like armor you're putting on, something you have to remind yourself to use. But eventually, it becomes second nature. You'll find yourself saying it with less effort, less tension, more peace. And that's when you know you've stepped out of their storm for good. So the effectiveness of this sentence doesn't just come from the words. It comes from your calm tone, your steady body language, your use of silence, and your refusal to over-explain. It comes from trusting the sentence enough to let it stand on its own. And the more you practice it, the stronger it becomes. Not because it changes the narcissist, but because it changes you. Deliver it with calm. Deliver it with confidence. Deliver it without fear. And watch how the power shifts the moment you stop defending and start owning your peace. Taking back your freedom from a narcissist is not about changing them, fixing them, or convincing them to finally treat you with respect. It's about changing how you respond, how you set boundaries, and how you protect your peace. The truth is, narcissists don't suddenly wake up one morning and decide to stop being manipulative. They don't hand you your freedom. You take it back by refusing to play their game anymore. That's the shift. That's the power. And once you taste it, you'll never go back to the old cycle again. Freedom begins when you stop believing their lies about who you are. Narcissists are experts at planting seeds of doubt. They'll tell you you're crazy, you're selfish, you're unlovable. And if you hear those lies long enough, you start to wonder if they're true. But the moment you recognize that their words are simply reflections of their own insecurity, you stop carrying them as your truth. When you say, "That's your choice," what you're really saying is, "I no longer accept your definition of me. I choose my own." That's the first step to freedom, the reclaiming of your identity. The second step is realizing you don't owe them your energy. Narcissists want every ounce of you, your time, your emotions, your attention, your defenses. They pull you into arguments, drag you through guilt trips, keep you up at night replaying conversations in your head. But freedom comes when you decide, I don't have to give them that anymore. You get to decide what you respond to. You get to decide what conversations you stay in. You get to decide when you walk away. And every time you choose peace over chaos, you're reclaiming another piece of your freedom. Taking back your freedom also means setting boundaries and sticking to them. Narcissists hate boundaries because boundaries mean they can invade every corner of your life. They'll test them, push them, try to tear them down. But boundaries are not for them, they're for you. They're reminders of what you will and will not accept. They're fences that protect your peace, even when the other person is furious that you built them. And yes, at first it will feel uncomfortable. They'll call you selfish, cold, heartless. But remember, that's their choice. You don't have to carry it, because freedom means you no longer compromise your well-being to keep them comfortable. And here's another truth about freedom. It sometimes looks like walking away. I know that can be the hardest part to hear, because walking away often feels like failure, like giving up. But it's not. It's strength, it's courage. It's choosing yourself over someone else's endless storm. Sometimes the smartest way to deal with a narcissist isn't another sentence, another strategy, or another attempt. It's the decision to step out of their orbit entirely. And when you do, when you finally release yourself from that cycle, you'll realize how heavy the weight was that you were carrying. You'll breathe differently. You'll think differently. You feel like yourself again. That's what freedom does. The beauty of reclaiming your freedom is that it doesn't just affect your relationship with the narcissist. It changes how you move through life. You start to trust yourself more. You start to set stronger boundaries with everyone, not just them. You start to notice toxic patterns sooner and step out of them quicker. You carry yourself with a calm confidence that says, I know who I am and I don't need anyone else to validate that. That's not just surviving a narcissist, that's thriving beyond them. But let me be honest, freedom is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. The first time you use that sentence, you may still feel shaky. The first time you set a boundary, you may doubt yourself. The first time you walk away, you may cry, you may question, you may wonder if you're doing the right thing. That's normal, because freedom isn't built in one moment. It's built choice by choice. Every time you refuse to carry their baggage, every time you remind yourself that their behavior is their responsibility, every time you hold your ground calmly, you are building your freedom brick by brick. And the day will come when you look back and realize you're not the same person anymore. You don't flinch when they criticize you. You don't spiral when they try to guilt trip you. You don't lose sleep replaying their words in your head. Because now you know those words don't define you. They never did. And you've taken back the one thing they could never control unless you gave it to them, your peace. So taking back your freedom is not about winning against them. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about refusing to let them rule your mind, your heart, and your life. It's about walking in strength, even when they want you to crumble. It's about choosing calm over chaos, self-respect over guilt, and truth over manipulation. And when you do that consistently, the chains start to fall off. You'll see it, you'll feel it. You'll know that no matter what they say, no matter how they act, they no longer own any part of you. That's the real victory. Not shouting them down, not finally getting them to admit they're wrong, but standing so steady in your own peace that nothing they say can shake it. That's freedom. That's power. That's the life you deserve to live, and it begins the moment you decide to take it back. So here's the truth. Narcissists don't change because you explain better, argue harder, or love more. They change only if they want to, and most never will. But the smartest thing you can do is stop letting their behavior define your peace. And that's exactly what this one sentence does. That's your choice. It takes the burden off your shoulders and puts it right back where it belongs. It cuts the strings they've been pulling. It shuts down the endless arguments, the guilt trips, the manipulation. It reminds you that their decisions are theirs and yours are yours. And once you believe that, once you start living that, you're free. Because freedom isn't found in fixing them, it's found in protecting yourself. It's not about making them fear you in the sense of domination. It's about making them fear losing their grip on you. And when they realize their words don't control you anymore, when they see that calm strength in your eyes, when they hear you say, that's your choice, and you mean it, everything shifts. That's the moment you take your power back. That's the moment you walk out of their storm and into your peace. And that's the moment you stop being the person they can manipulate and start being the person they can no longer touch. So the next time a narcissist comes at you with their games, remember this, you don't have to fight. You don't have to explain. You don't have to beg them to see you. Just stand steady, guard your peace, and say the words that end their power. That's your choice.